the building and the area didn't look super jazzy or anything. So I was like, just going with the punches. I moved in, and the initial owners was a family that we had a really good relationship. You could go see them, you could physically go pay your rent. They were down in West Oakland, and they sold the property after maybe 2 years.
I'm a single mother of two. I've always lived with like either my mother, my aunt, family members. And I randomly drove by Coliseum Connection when it was in construction. They were raffling out these units, which were based off your income. I got a call saying that my number came up. The Coliseum Connection is the first apartment that me and my children had. The Coliseum Connection apartment sits in a place where I can foresee my kid taking BART to school. There's bus lines, there's freeway entrances right there, the freeway exit, everything is close by.
I left for college. I came back and was working in the city of Oakland and lived in Hayward. Coliseum Connections, I got on the waiting list, and on June 9th, 2019, I moved in, and it was great.
Dignity and Power, y'all, it's B.
And it's Chris.
From the East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative. In this episode, we hear from some Black and brown tenants in Deep East Oakland that the DAP met through our efforts to outreach, educate, and organize.
Favi Ramos and Dream Braggs of Coliseum Connections and Toshia Christal of Pippin Street all tuned into their power as tenant organizers to transform the challenges they face. Just like countless tenants have and are doing across the country to demand dignified housing they can afford from their corporate owners and negligent landlords.
The tenant organizers we meet here are all among the 60% of Oakland's population that is made up of renters. They share different but very connected experiences of leading the charge to change their reality and fight for the housing they deserve.
After the original owners sold the property, it became a rabbit hole of issues that myself and tenants were dealing with, very disconnected relationships between management. They didn't know who we were, we didn't know who they were. The ownership changed maybe 2 or 3 times. Myself and other tenants spent a significant amount of years just like fighting for basic things to get fixed and really advocating for relationships primarily to be built. A lot of my neighbors felt as if they had no power to do anything. So I started making copies. I started getting our neighbors' files and folders together so that I could be the resource hub. And I love to be able to come together. Our numbers are so much more powerful. And I think that's what initially drove me as well. It's like it could be one of me or it could be 10 of us.
It makes sense that housing and real estate are huge industries that can make owners and investors a lot of money since everyone needs shelter. Around the country, and certainly in Deep East Oakland, renters are facing negligence, harassment from landlords, unsafe or substandard living conditions, illegal rent increases, and even illegal evictions.
These practices are all rooted in the drive to extract a profit by charging maximum rents, refusing to make repairs and investments into their assets until tenants leave so they can charge even more. But once tenants decide we're not going to take it anymore, learn and understand our tenant rights, and recognize our strength in numbers, we can turn to tenant organizing and empower ourselves to not only keep and improve our homes, but to collectively and permanently own our homes, because housing is a basic need and a human right, not a commodity.
When I first started seeing things that, problems that were coming, it was more so when I noticed the turnover in the property management. We had in total 5 property managers in the last 4 years. And there was one maintenance guy for 110 units. He was an expert at what he did, but he couldn't do it alone.
I remember not having hot water, and the AC didn't work, the heaters didn't work. There was a pipe that bursted in my unit in the pantry area that's connected to the bathroom. It took them about, I would say, 3 months for them to fix that.
I actually sued my landlords at least 3 times previously. In all of them, I won my cases. The city of Oakland basically was looking at them in court like, listening to some of the stories that we were telling, and they're like, right, this makes absolutely no sense. And we would say, you know what, if they keep it up, we're gonna keep it up, and we're gonna own this place, we're gonna own this property. We never imagined that that would actually be a reality.
December 31st, 2022. The rain happened. It flooded the whole street. The gutters were not cleaned out. There was not the proper water pump that was supposed to be in the garage, so all the water had nowhere to go.
Half of the units are low income and the other are market rate. I woke up, I had plans, it was raining. Didn't know about nothing but like 2 or 3 neighbors. I go downstairs to the lobby and I see people with trash bags on their legs. I go upstairs and I get trash bags, and I'm walking down into the garage and the water seeps through the garbage bags. I turn back and I look, the water was rising as I was thinking.
The water sat in the garage because they couldn't take the water out of the garage and pump it back into the streets of Oakland because they said it was contaminated. So the people that had their cars parked there, they were total loss.
Our landlord, Michael Johnson of Urban Core, received over $24 million of public funding to build our homes, but he failed to maintain the safety of our building. If we hadn't quickly organized and demanded temporary housing, he might have left us soaked on the street. Johnson even ignored the requirement to get flood insurance for the building. So today, we are making the trip from our tiny rooms where he's abandoned us to his big house that our rent paid for, to tell him what we, the Coliseum Connections Tenant Association, demand.
What do we need?
Justice!
When I initially moved in, my rent was under $1,100. Before the landlords left, they were attempting to raise my rent to $2,700. The unit was leaking, there was water coming through the walls, traveling through the ceiling, and then coming down into my bedroom. I had a bunch of my furniture, antique furniture that was destroyed, clothes, shoes, a lot of belongings that were destroyed. My whole room was gutted out to the bones. I had a big pod in the driveway for a whole month with all my clothes, all of my items, where I was like getting dressed out of the driveway. Mold issues. Myself and other tenants spent a significant amount of years just like fighting for basic things to get fixed and really advocating for relationships primarily to be built.
The property sits on BART property. And when we told BART that we were displaced and that we were in the verge of homelessness, and some are homeless with no food assistance or anything like that, all they said was they can give us $100 crypto cards and a parking space at BART, where some tenants got parking tickets for parking at.
The one particular resident, she's an activist in Oakland. She's awesome. Her name is Alex Villa. And she said, Dream, we gotta do something. And I said to her, what are we gonna do? And she said, we're gonna fight. I wanted to go to my dad's, but I gotta keep my word. How do we fight if we all separated? And so I made a choice to stay. There were people that couldn't speak English. There were people that just didn't know how to defend themselves. It makes me think about intimate moments, you know, like when you cry with someone and you have this moment of transparency. That was intimate. That storm, that flood was intimate for all of us because we were all there standing in the rain.
The DAP is proud to coordinate with groups like Tank and many other organizations in Oakland and the Bay Area that organize with tenants. Like Oakland Tenants Union, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, or ACE, and Regional Tenants Organizing Network, or RTON. We as renters in this capitalistic experiment know that in our under-resourced communities of color, violence looks like displacement, like lack of access to affordable and dignified housing, clean air, healthy food, and strong communities.
We also know that when we fight, we win, and that organizing is work and takes time. In fact, our experience with Pippin Street and CCTA demonstrate how critical it is to have paid organizers on the ground and in the fight with tenants to create the greatest opportunity for transformation.
Through the information that I got from Tank, right, taking that to my neighbors, they're telling me, right, you can do the rent adjustment program, you can contact the city of Oakland. We will help you, right, find out who exactly your landlords are, who is all in the LLC, what other properties they have. You can go and contact the other property tenants, and if you have 10 in your building, you can go and get the other 10 in the other building, the other 20 in the other property, and you guys can really, take on a lot more. And so that was kind of the initiation to the Pippin Street action. I got connected with EB PREC by way of B. Coleman, who works with EB PREC on the staff. And they mentioned this organization, EB PREC, to me. They just basically told me like a gist of what was going on. I went from being informed about EB PREC. Down the line, a couple months later, I get a call and EB PREC is saying, right, hey, we see this property on the pipeline, and we also see that you live here, right? And at this moment, I'm a community member, I'm on the board, and now I live at Pippin Street, and this property is coming through the pipeline. They're like, oh, well, you think your neighbors would be interested? If they're not interested, they're gonna get interested, right? Because I'm surely going to give them all the information, right, as to what's going on, how this can benefit them, what it looks like, and how this is very much different and needed, right, from any position that we've been in before, and right, how this, right, changes our lives and sets us up for even more, right, later down the line, generational wealth.
Situated between the Coliseum and the San Leandro BART stations, Toshia's 10-unit apartment complex at Pippin Street had been traded between different corporate entities at least 3 times in the past 10 years. In different ways, Toshia, Favi, Dream, and the tenants at Coliseum Connections all had experiences with water that changed their lives and played a role in their journey to becoming organizers. The Coliseum Connections Tenant Association, or CCTA, rose up from the leadership of a core group of dedicated tenants, including Favi and Dream, with deep support from local organizers from the Tenant and Neighborhood Council, or TANK, and EB PREC.
CCTA organized to advocate with city and BART officials to demand support and resources for all the tenants, as well as taking actions directly with their building's owner, Michael Johnson, demanding accountability and fighting against their displacement. Often, we must organize for our immediate needs, but what does organizing even take? What could it be possible if we channel our passion and our power from our landlords towards the systems we live in?
Can we continue organizing to build power and make life better for tenants everywhere, such as through stronger policy like nationwide rent control? What about community-controlled assets to decommodify housing, build community wealth, and create permanently affordable housing? What limit is there to what tenants can build when we leverage shared struggle for collective change?
If Coliseum Connection tenants did not form as an association, we would not be back where we are right now. The strategies that we came up with, getting everyone comfortable with one another, we started getting the media out so that the media can hear our stories, and we created a group chat and we communicated through the group chat every day. Tank came in and they helped us with organizing and strategizing to have a handful of us show up to these meetings with the city of Oakland and demanding things. I've always been skeptical about government officials, but I have lost a great deal of respect from them going through this. Because you go up there and you tell them all your story. We stay there all day and all they can say is, I'm sorry, we'll get back to you. You're not on the agenda. They rather not cut a tree down than help us get back home. I didn't know what a displacement was before we were displaced. It's not just not having a home, but it's feeling anxious, angry, stressed out, a sense of not having control over where you are. Now you add kids to the mix, kids don't understand. try to explain it, you can't.
I myself was displaced from my previous living quarters, 32nd and Market Street for 10 years, 2 white women from Temescal, and they wanted to move me out in 15 to 30 days after I had been there for 10 years. It was a very stressful situation. I was put in positions to extract all of my savings, and I never could have planned for the day that I'd be displaced.
I believe that every single resident knows how to stand in some form or fashion and is able to recognize now and be able to observe when it's not right and knows what it looks like when it is right.
It's amazing that when EB PREC purchased our property, that no one was displaced, that no one's rent went up. And the switch of that was that everyone's residency essentially is permanent. So to be in this position now, a co-owner through EB PREC, I don't even know where to start, honestly, expressing my just gratitude for the way that things panned out.
If you and your neighbors are struggling with your landlord or property manager harassing you, failing to make repairs, raising your rent illegally, or threatening you with eviction, you have rights and resources. Check the description.
Talk to your neighbors. Find out who else is dealing with similar issues and is willing to work together to get your needs met right now. And reach out to tenant organizers at TANK, Oakland's Tenants Union, or Regional Tenants Organizing Network.
And if you're feeling down for the long game, join us at EB PREC as we organize to decommodify land and housing for long-term benefit to create #LandWithoutLandlords, reimagining an unjust housing system that created these conditions in the first place.
Visit us at ebprec.org.